We have some developments just now out of Maine. Officials are giving an update on the deadly shooting last night and the ongoing search for an armed suspect.
Tonight will be U.S. Senator Susan Collins, U.S. Representative Jared Golden, and Steve Littleson, President and CEO of Central Maine Medical Center. And now Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mayor. Today is a dark day for the state of Maine. As the mayor said, our hearts are heavy with grief. This heinous attack, which has robbed the lives of at least 18 Mainers and injured so many more, is the worst mass shooting that the state of Maine has ever experienced and could ever imagine. Today, I looked out my window in Washington and I saw that the flags had been lowered. And I realized that it had been done to honor the victims of this horrific attack. I'm grateful for the leadership of Lewiston Police Chief St. Pierre and for the bravery of the hundreds of state, local, and federal law enforcement officers who are leading the search for the killer. I'm also very grateful for all of the hospital employees who came back to work to take care of the victims, and for our first responders whose bravery was so evident. Last night, the president called me. He stepped out at the state dinner with the Australian Prime Minister to offer any help that the federal government could provide the city of Lewiston, Androscoggin County, and the state of Maine. I also, at midnight, talked to Governor Mills, who has been a pillar of strength for our state. Tom Perez, who is a special advisor to the president throughout the night, texted me back and forth, what you need, and I would tell him based on conversations that I had as he coordinated the federal response. This morning, Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, called and offered help from his department. The Attorney General also called, along with Maine's own U.S. Attorney, to offer their help. Right before I came into this building, I had a call from the Deputy Director of the FBI, who told me that there are 80 FBI agents on site participating in the search for the killer. 80. That doesn't include other people from the Marshal's Office, from the ATF, the DEA, and the Department of Homeland Security, and the Coast Guard. This has been a concerted effort at the state, local, and federal level, and everyone is determined to bring the killer to justice. To the families of those who have been injured or killed, I know that no words can fully ease the shock, the pain, and the justifiable anger that you are feeling. My hope is that you will feel the solace and strength in knowing that you are in the hearts of the people of Maine and of people throughout our nation. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce the Congressman Jared Golden, who represents this area of Maine.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you to Mayor Shalene as well. My name is Congressman Jared Golden from the town of Lewiston. Represent Maine's 2nd Congressional District. Some of you might not recognize me because Congress has been so crazy lately. I haven't gotten a haircut in months. So sometimes things happen that bring your worst nightmares to life. Yesterday, this is what happened in Lewiston. At a time like this, a leader is forced to grapple with things that are far greater than his or herself. Humility is called for as accountability is sought by the victims of a tragedy such as this one. Out of fear of this dangerous world that we live in and my determination to protect my own daughter and wife in our home and in our community, because of a false confidence that our community was above this and that we could be in full control, among many other misjudgments, I have opposed efforts to ban deadly weapons of war like the assault rifle used to carry out this crime. The time has now come for me to take responsibility for this failure, which is why I now call on the United States Congress to ban assault rifles like the one used by the sick perpetrator of this mass killing in my hometown of Lewiston, Maine. For the good of my community, I will work with any colleague to get this done in the time that I have left in Congress. To the people of Lewiston, my constituents throughout the 2nd District, to the families who lost loved ones, and to those who have been harmed, I ask for forgiveness and support as I seek to put an end to these terrible shootings. In the days to come, I will give everything I have to support this community's recovery. Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce Steve Littleson, President and CEO of Central Maine Medical Center.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Steve Littleson, the CEO of Central Maine Healthcare, which includes Central Maine Medical Center here in Lewiston. On behalf of the 3,000 professionals and team members of Central Maine Healthcare, I too would like to extend our deepest condolences to the families of the victims of the events of last night. I would also like to acknowledge the compassion and the expertise and the teamwork displayed by the healthcare professionals in this community last night when called upon under the most extreme circumstances. Just to give you the numbers as we have them now, I know there's been some confusion, and I would like to take the opportunity to just let you know what we dealt with and what we have currently in our hospital. All but one of the patients that were taken from the scenes last night were brought to Central Maine Medical Center. One was transported directly to St. Mary's Medical Center here in Lewiston. Of those patients, 2 were treated and discharged. One of those patients was transferred from Central Maine Medical Center to Maine Medical Center in Portland. 3 patients, unfortunately, passed away in Central Maine Medical Center last night. Of those, 8 remain now, and we have 5 patients who are in stable condition, 3 who are in critical condition in our critical care unit. Just to give you a sense of the scope of what we dealt with within a relatively short period of time, last night within about 45 minutes to an hour, we had 6 fully staffed and running operating rooms at Central Maine Medical Center caring for the wounded and the victims. The professionals that were operating simultaneously in those 6 operating rooms included orthopedic surgeons, general trauma surgeons, urologists, vascular surgeons, as well as anesthesiologists and support personnel. I would like to also express our appreciation for all of the support that we received and continue to receive even through today. First from the City of Lewiston. Secondly, from law enforcement. We still have a law enforcement presence on the campus at Central Maine Medical Center. The other area hospitals that came to our support, we needed blood transferred to Central Maine Medical Center very quickly, and 2 of the hospitals, Maine General and St. Mary's, accommodated us. Maine Med in Portland stood by and was ready to accept patients, and as you know, they did accept one of the patients that we transferred to them. And also the various community partners that came to aid and support us last night, including emergency response personnel, personnel from Life Flight of Maine, and others. As one of the counselors said to me before we walked in tonight, you know, often people underestimate our capabilities here to care for people locally. I think last night we proved that by working together we can do just that under the most trying circumstances. Thank you.
We'll take a few questions.
Senator Collins, if she could move to the microphone. Senator, you just heard from Representative Jared Golden that he has changed his mind on an assault rifle ban. Would you do the same?
Well, first of all, let me say that I think it is more important that we ban very high capacity magazines. I think that would have more input and more effectiveness. We had an assault weapon ban, which I supported, that was in effect for 10 years. It applied to, I believe, 17 or 19 styles of weapons. Later, the late Senator Dianne Feinstein proposed an expansion that would have covered 157 weapons. And it was based not on functionality, but on cosmetic features. So there's always more that we can do. I was a co-author of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which provided funding, for example, for red and yellow flag laws and for mental health clinics, which I think is important as well. So certainly there's always more that can be done.
Senator, a decade ago, though, you opposed legislation that limited access to expanded, stocks and firearms capacity. Are you suggesting that you would do something different now?
I don't believe you're correct. For example, I was the lead Republican sponsor of a bill that would ban bump stocks, which have the ability to turn a semi-automatic into a fully automatic machine gun. And that legislation has not been enacted into law. There was an attempt to do it by regulation, but it was struck down by the courts. I still support the bump stock legislation. The other thing that I think we can look at is, and I advocated, was to increase the age at which you could purchase a high-capacity rifle from 18 to 21, the way it is for a handgun.
Senator Collins, you mentioned there are a lot of questions about the whereabouts of Robert Card. You mentioned a number of agencies searching for him. Can you offer any more details regarding the whereabouts of Card or how close we're getting to finding him?
I cannot, because I don't want to jeopardize the search for him in any way. I have talked extensively to law enforcement, and as I said just very recently with the FBI deputy director, but I certainly don't want to jeopardize the search in any way.
Senator Collins, Mugello flag laws used in this case. You are a big advocate of them. Do you know if they were used in this case?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Were yellow flag laws used in this case?
To my, I don't know. That's a very good question.
You said that Maine got it right when it came to yellow flag
Maine
laws.
does have a good yellow
If
flag.
it's true, as we are hearing, that Robert Card had mental health issues and he was, the police put him forward for evaluation, you got it wrong.
No, I don't know whether there was a report to trigger the yellow flag law. It's certainly on the face of the facts that we have. It seems. Could you let me finish, please? It certainly seems that on the basis of the facts that we have, that the yellow flag law should have been triggered if, in fact, the suspect was hospitalized for 2 weeks for mental illness. That should have triggered the yellow flag law, and he should have been separated from his weapons. I'm sure after the fact that's going to be looked at very closely. Obviously, that's a state issue, and I do not have knowledge of what happened in that instance.
Senator Collins, Mark Stone from Sky News, thank you for your time. I wonder if I could just ask you about the weapons again. Why do you think it is that you and so many other lawmakers in America believe it is right for Americans to have the right to own such high-velocity weapons?
Well, first of all, let me say, and I'll repeat it again, that for 10 years we had a ban on certain kinds of assault weapons, and I supported that ban. And when George W. Bush proposed that it be extended for 10 more years, I supported that effort, which did not succeed. Later, years later, there was an attempt by former Senator Dianne Feinstein to greatly expand the number of weapons that would be covered by that ban, and it was based not on lethality, but more on how they looked, on cosmetic features. And I did not think that that was appropriate. We do have a Second Amendment in our country.
And that gives
And-
people the right to own a weapon that powerful, you think?
And Maine, I would point out, has one of the highest rates of gun ownership in the country and has a long heritage of responsible gun ownership. It has also had a very low rate of violence. What makes this crime so heinous is in a typical year, Maine might have 22 murders, and last night we almost approached the number for the entire year.
Is anyone
Thank
here
you so much.
Is anyone here briefed on the investigation to tell us?
We
We've
cannot
seen
talk
video
about
of
the
the FBI.
investigation yet, but thank you so much, and I appreciate your patience with us in this news conference. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Listening to a news conference with police and lawmakers in Maine following the mass shooting in Lewiston. At least 18 people were killed in 2 locations, a bar and a bowling alley. The suspect, Robert Card, remains at large.